one, so thank you for all of the love on the Halloween sweater. My second most requested thing I make is this granny square shrug that I posted on my Instagram. And so I was in the process of making a second one. And so I just recorded some of the steps I did on how I put it all together. And then this is it right here. I completely used the join as you go method. I had already made one and then it did get a lot of love. So I was making a second one anyway, and I recorded myself essentially putting it together. So this video, kind of similar to the Halloween one, is not a full tutorial, but it does show you the steps I do on how I make my granny square, and then I swore by it in my last video, connect everything with the join as you go method. So I show you the last round of my granny square and how I connect each piece together, essentially. But all of the same steps would apply in joining the squares if you want to use sewing. I just don't, because I don't love the look of it, and this kind of takes that step out. Some notes that I want to say before the pattern: I made the second one with a larger hook, and so it obviously turned out larger. When you're making or when you're deciding what hook to use, I would use the hook that you like typically do, because I'm assuming that you've made a granny square before. But if you haven't, there are millions of tutorials on YouTube and they're very easy to follow. Measure out how long you want it from wrist to wrist in length, and I will try to put a visual in here of what I'm trying to say. But measure yourself like your wingspan from one arm to one arm. So there will be a total of 5 granny squares across on both sides. You want those to at least be longer than whatever measurement you took. And that is because we will kind of cinch the wrists, so it will kind of balloon at your wrist. And so as long as it's longer, you can make it work. And then everything else is decided kind of when you're putting it together, like where you want to put the neck hole. None of that has to be decided until you have the pieces laid out and you're deciding what you want to do. Do a test swatch of the hook that you want. I did not do this, but it's always recommended if you're not really sure how big or if you're making this for someone else. So if you make a test square with the yarn and the hook size, measure that and then times that measurement by 5. And then if that is longer than your wingspan or whatever wingspan you're trying to make this for, then that should be perfect. If it is way too big, maybe down a hook size or just take a row off of the granny square. And if it is too small, you could either add another row or go up a hook size. I will show comparison of the first shrug that I did versus the second. The first one I did with a 5.5 millimeter hook, and then the second one I did with a 9 millimeter hook, I want to say, if not 8.5, but it was pretty big. And then same type of yarn size for acrylic throughout the entire thing. And with all of that being said, I'm just going to insert my videos that I took on how I assembled the second one, which is this one. But all of the same steps apply for both of the ones I made. Okay, so to start off, you will need 6 granny squares at 10 rows each, and then 4 granny squares at 10 rows each as well, but on one side we're going to do some decreases to get the wrist. So each of my squares using the 8 millimeter hook, they were 12.5 inches after 10 rows. So that being said, the entire wingspan of it will be 62.5. And then this is just for later on after you connect them how much you want the open spot. And then you're going to sew along the top for the arms. And then kind of midway through one of the arm squares, you're going to sew and then leave this part open. Same on that side, open. And then I just do a half double crochet stitch around the bottom to finish it off. And if you don't want to make a practice square, what I did is, like after the third row with an 8 millimeter hook, it was 4.25. The fourth row, it was 5.5. Fifth row, it was 6.75. And so it was always going up. Every row I added, it went up or 1 1/4 inch. with my 5.5 millimeter hook. For 2 rows, it was 2.5 inches. 3 rows, it was 3.5. 4 rows, 4.5. And so I knew that that was going up 1 inch. And so by the time I got to round 10, the 8 millimeter hook would equal 12.5, and the 5.5 millimeter hook would equal 10 inches, or 10.5 inches after the 10th row. So you can kind of do that instead of making an entire square and realizing it's too big or too small, and then adjust from there. Also, if it's like too short or something, you can always add rows to the bottom or add rows at the end of the sleeve if you need to adjust that way. Completely up to you. Okay, so this is what a square will look like after 9 rows, and you will need 6 of these. For the wrist square, start off with 6 rows normally, and then I'm going to show you what to do for one of the sides on the 7th row. So here I am just doing the magic knot method to join my new yarn, and I will have a tutorial throughout this video. I show you several times on how I do this. But basically what you do is you just tie a knot with the old yarn onto the new yarn, and then the new yarn onto the old yarn, pull them apart, snip the ends, and then you have yourself the magic knot. Again, we will go over this again later, but where the magic knot lands, it should end perfectly after you finish a double crochet on your last row, which is what you're seeing here. So now that you're at the new yarn, you chain 1 and then slip stitch into that first double crochet from the last row. And then instead of a chain 3, I do a stacked double crochet, which is a single crochet, and then go into that front post and do another single crochet. You're going to do 2 additional double crochets into this corner space, and then we're going to be decreasing across the next 2 spaces. So how you're going to do that is you're going to yarn over and then do a double crochet into this first space after the corner. And then you're going to yarn over again and place your hook in, pull up a loop, and go through 2. And then you're going to yarn over, go into the next space, pull up a loop, go through 2, and then only go through 2. Yarn over, go into the same space, go through 2, and then go through all 3. And then do 1 final double crochet into that second space, and then that gives you a decrease. And then into this next space, we're going to be doing just a normal double crochet cluster, so 3 double crochets into this space, and then in the next 2 spaces we're going to do another decrease. So start with a double crochet, then yarn over, do another one but don't finish it, only go through the first 2, and then the next space, do a double crochet, go through 2, go through the next 2, yarn over, and then go through 2 and go through all 3, and then 1 final double crochet. And then you're going to continue around the granny square as normal. So you're going to go 3 double crochets into this corner, and then a chain 2, and then another 3 double crochets. And then I'm assuming you've made a granny square before, so I just kind of sped this part up, but you go around as normal, and I will meet you back when we join. Okay, so here I am at the end, and then in that first spot that we started, we're putting an additional 3 double crochets to give it 2 sets of double crochet clusters. Okay, so now it's time for a magic knot. Snip a couple centimeters away from where your yarn ended with the last double crochet, and then frog that double crochet only. So take your new yarn and then tie your old yarn around the new yarn and pull it tight and only leave like a little baby tail. And then you're going to take your new yarn and tie the same knot around the old yarn, and then the sides of the tail doesn't really matter, I just keep them small. And then when you pull in opposite directions, they should slide together, and then snip off the little tails, and if you pulled it again, they should not come apart. So here I am showing you that if you pull really hard apart, they are stuck. So then when you go back into your last round and you double crochet, you end up at the new yarn. And so you just chain 1 and then slip stitch into that very first double crochet. And then typically it is a chain 2 for corners, but for the very first corner, I always do a chain 1 because the slip stitch makes it a little wider. So for round 8, we start off with another stacked double crochet, and then an additional 2 double crochets into this first corner space. And then we're going to do another decrease, but this time we're going to do a cluster in this space, so just 3 regular double crochets. And then over the next 2 spaces, we're going to decrease. So we're going to double crochet as normal, and then yarn over, and then don't complete this one. Yarn over, go through 2, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2, go through 3, and then 1 final double crochet. And then the rest of the way, it will just be regular double crochets in the spaces. So a regular cluster in this space, and then your regular corner, so 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets, and then go around, complete as normal. So here we're finishing up, placing the final 3 double crochets in that last corner space, snipping off with a little bit of tail, like the smallest amount. And then I did speed this up because this is like the 3rd time, but we're doing the trusty magic knot. So we're making our first knot, and then with the new yarn, we're making our second knot. Then we're going to pull apart, and they're locked in. We snip twice, and then we put our hook back in and finish that double crochet, and we end up at the next color. And now we slip stitch to the very first double crochet, and then we do a stacked double crochet, and then we place 2 more double crochets into the corner stitch. This is our 9th row, so this is the last row that we will be decreasing. So in the next space, we're going to do a regular double crochet cluster of 3. And then I do apologize for the white blanket. I do change to a black one very shortly. Here we go. So then over these next 2, we're going to decrease. So a regular double crochet right here, yarn over, only pull through 2. And then we're going to yarn over again into this next space, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through all 3, and then a final double crochet. And then that is the last of the decreases for our wrist squares. So just go ahead and finish up this square as normal with 3 double crochet clusters in all the spaces, and then 2 sets of clusters in each corner, and I will meet you back at the end. Okay, so per usual, we're doing 3 double crochet cluster in the first spot that we started. Snip off real close because this is row 9, and then we will start building the sweater. Okay, so we should have 10 squares in total, 6 regular, and then 4 that are kind of cinched in on one side. So lay out the squares how you are going to want them. So this is the back piece, and then that is the piece that I want the center front. And then this will be the back on the side, front side, back side, front side. And then these, do you see how it cinches in right there? This will be the sleeve, like the very bottom of the sleeves. So you want the cinched part farthest away from you at the very bottom, or like the farthest end. And then here, this is where we will be putting our neck. So kind of play around with safety pins and see how big you want your neck opening. And then here is the bottom where your body will go. So in between where my hands are will be left open. And then right here will be all sewn together. And then same up top for the arms, and then the same thing on the other side. So right there will be sewn together, and right there. So yeah, just leave the middle open like this, and then here is one that I've already finished. This is just me showing you how I did the bottom. So yeah, just keep this part open. We will not be joining that to anything, and then we're going to be, I personally join as you go, which I will be showing you my process, but that's all going to be joined together. And then the sleeve, how it cinches. And then here is just a better visual of the neck. So we're going to start with the square that you want the center front. And I am attaching the base color, which is white, for the 10th row with the magic knot method that I have previously shown. And then this one is pretty basic. Just do normally how you would a granny square, going around the entire thing as usual. So we're just doing our final double crochet of row 9, chain 1, slip stitch into that very first double crochet, and then go around with your clusters in each space and then 2 clusters with a chain 2 in between on each corner. So here I am finishing up. We're chaining 1, slip stitching, do another chain 1, and then leave a tail because this is the last row of our square. So here we have the front center piece, and then we're going to grab the piece directly beside it, and then we're going to be doing the join as you go method on this one side right here. But it will be normal on all other sides as we have done. So lay out the 2 squares, and then this would be the side that I want it to connect to. So with both right sides facing out, in that last corner you're going to do half of a corner, so you're going to do 3 double crochets and then chain 2. And then you're going to be slip stitching into this corner right here from the original granny square. You're going to go in through the top and then grab your yarn and slip stitch, pull it tight, and then finish that corner with the additional 3 double crochets. So that's 2 and then 3. So you're going to grab the original granny square and slip stitch into that next space. Grab the yarn, pull through, tighten, and then do the additional 3 double crochets in that next space. And you're just going to continue this down the line. So the next square, we go through the top and slip stitch, pull tight, and then 3 more double crochets in the next space. And then just keep following this pattern all down this one side, slip stitching, going into the corresponding space, and then the cluster until you reach the end. Okay, so once you reach the corner, you're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then slip stitch into the corner of the original granny square. And you can see here that if I pull it apart, it is stitched together by those slip stitches. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone by finishing the last round and sewing it together in the same turn. And then you're going to put 3 more double crochets in that same corner to finish it, and then just continue down the line how we have been with just 3 double crochets in each space and finish how we have been. So for this last space, we just put the 3 double crochets to finish that corner, a chain 1, slip stitch into that first double crochet, and then we will chain 1 and fasten off. So here you can see that we have the front panel and the side panel connected together. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the front side panel on the other side. So connect that one side together and leave the rest just as normal. So 3 sides normal, 1 side join as you go together. So here I have all 3 squares connected in a line. And so what you want to do next is decide how big you want your neck hole. So I want it connected with these 2 spots that I'm pointing at, but you can do it anywhere as long as you can easily get your head through the hole. And then with my first cardigan that I made, I connected in the exact same spots. Okay, so this is going to be the center back panel. And so this is me finishing up row 9. So you're going to chain 1 and do your slip stitch with your stacked double crochet. And then do your 2 additional double crochets in that corner. And you're going to do 2 sides as normal. Okay, so here I am. This is me finishing up my second side. So I'm doing my 3 double crochets in that corner and a chain 2. So this is the wrong side of the center panel. So we're technically looking at the inside of the sweater right now. So remember the two spots that we want to connect in order to get the neck hole. So that's here and here. So what we're going to do is lay our current square on top and make sure that you have wrong side facing wrong side. And after that chain 2, you're going to slip stitch in the corner of your previous granny square. And then you're going to do 3 more double crochets in that corner. And you're going to slip stitch into that next space. And then do another 3 double crochets in that next space. And then in order to leave the neck hole opening, we're just going to continue down the current granny square with 3 double crochets in each space until we get 2 away or wherever you wanted to connect for your neck hole. Okay, so now I'm approaching the other side of where we want the neck to connect. So we're going to do our last double crochet cluster in this space. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to slip stitch into the corresponding space on the original granny square. And then do 3 double crochets in that corner, chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into the corner of the original granny square. Here I'm just showing you how it creates a little pocket, so that will be your neck hole. Here we are just going to slip stitch into that corresponding corner. And then turn, and you're just going to go down this line exactly as normal, finish that corner with 3 double crochets, and then just keep doing a double crochet cluster in each space until you get to the end. Okay, so here is our neck hole. I recommend if you are unsure to try it on here because then you can undo it and make the neck hole bigger if needed. So this next one, I accidentally started and then realized I wanted to rearrange the colors, but anyway, this one we're going to be connecting 2.5 sides. So we'll be connecting to the one we just worked on, and then the top of the sleeve, and then part of the bottom. So right here, we only want to do half of it, so it leaves a large opening for our body. So because I already did one side on accident, when I get to this final corner, we will do the chain 2, and then we're slip stitching to the bottom. So line up your sweater how it will be laying. So this is the back side for me, and what you want to do is count out how many spaces you want to leave unconnected for your body. So on the 5th space right here, including the corner, those will be connected, and then the rest of them will be left open. So with turning the sweater upside down, we're slip stitching into that corner, and then finish the corner with another 3 double crochets. And then we are going to slip stitch into the next spot on that previous granny square, and then another 3 double crochets in that next space, and then slip stitch into the next space on the previous one, another set of 3 double crochets, and then another slip stitch, another set of 3 double crochets, and then slip stitch in the corresponding space, another set of 3 double crochets, and I'm sorry this just sounds really repetitive, but this next slip stitch is my last one before I leave the rest open. And here's just me double checking. So after that final slip stitch, here you can see that those are just connected. You're just going to continue down the line as normal with 3 double crochets and no slip stitches. So just double crochet 3 in each space until you reach the corner. Okay, so once I reach this corner, I do my 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the back panel that we had worked on previously. So to give you a better idea, here is our neck hole. And then down here is the bottom of the sweater that we just worked on. And so we are basically just connecting 2 front panels. So we are slip stitching in this corner right here. And then we are doing that the entire way down. So just rearranging so it's easier for me. We have our neck hole to the left. And then this right here is going to be the top of the sleeve. So finishing that corner with 3 double crochets. And then after that third one, we're slip stitching in the corresponding space. And then we will be slip stitching with every single space. We're not skipping any on this straight line. And then just fast forwarding until I get to the end of this side of the square. And if you're still having trouble with the join as you go method, I tried to make it as easy as possible, but there are so many good tutorials on YouTube or TikTok. And you're also welcome to sew these on by hand after having all the squares finished. I just personally like it this way. But it's pretty repetitive, just 3 double crochets and a slip stitch all the way. And then once you get to that corner, you're going to do your 3 double crochets with your chain 2. You're going to place your hook through the top of the square that you're connecting to, and then you're going to go through the top of the square that is directly behind the square you're working on, if that makes sense. So like the back of the arm. And then you're going to slip stitch through both of those corners. You could do 2 separate slip stitches, but I just like to do it in one. And then from here, you're going to immediately start working on connecting the top of the arm. So just 3 double crochets in that corner. And then slip stitching in the corresponding space. And then 3 double crochets in the next space. Slip stitch and do that all the way until you've reached the end, which should put us at our starting point. So for your corner, you're doing 3 double crochets, your chain 1, slip stitch into that corresponding corner. But I like to do the slip stitch and connecting to the first double crochet in the same slip stitch. So you enter your hook in the corner the exact same, but instead of pulling through, you just also put your hook through the first double crochet and then slip stitch through both. So here we have half of the arm done. So you can see it's connected up top, and then the bottom is connected about halfway, and then the rest is left for an opening. And then you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side with connecting the top of the sleeve and only part of the bottom, and also connecting it to that center square. So here's where we're at now. These are all 6 of the normal squares that we have, and the rest are just the wrist squares. So we have the neck. Feel free to try it on, make sure everything is fitting okay. And then on these sides right here is where we will be connecting the squares that are kind of cinched. So on that first sweater I made, this is what I'm talking about. You'll be connecting 3 sides, leaving the bottom one open, and that's where your wrist will come out. So make sure to line up the wrist square with the cinched side facing the right or left, depending on what side you're working on. But for the first one, we're only going to be connecting the one side right here. So it depends on where your row starts, but mine starts where we will immediately be working on the cinched side. But for this one, I'm not having any decreases on row 10. So it's really just the same as normal, where you're just putting 3 double crochets in each space, but just be mindful of the stitches that you decreased. So for me, including the corners, I should have 6 double crochet clusters on this side only. So I'm going to put a cluster in this first space right here, and then another in this next space. And then this next one's a little tricky, but make sure you skip over the decrease, don't go in the middle, and just continue on with 3 double crochets in that space. And then another set of 3 in that next space. And then do a corner with 3 double crochets, chain 2, and another 3 double crochets to turn. So you're going to go down this side as normal with 3 double crochets in each space, no slip stitching or anything. And then once you have your last 3 in your corner with your chain 2, this is where we attach it to the body of the sweater. So we slip stitch as normal, and then we finish that corner with the other 3 double crochets, and then we connect this entire side to the body as we have with the other squares. So no skipping any slip stitches. And you're just going to continue all the way down. And once you reach your final side, you will just finish it like a normal granny square row, where you're not slip stitching to anything, you're just 3 double crochets in each space and then fasten off as normal. And sometimes I like to start with the very first corner only having 2 double crochets, so then I can chain 2 and do a final double crochet, and I feel like it just kind of blends better, if that made sense. Okay, and like an idiot, I did not record myself doing the final square. But what you're going to do is you're going to connect the exact same way these 3 sides and then leave the bottom part open. Okay, here is where we're doing the trim on the very bottom. So connect anywhere on the bottom with the main color. And then you're just going to do half double crochets all the way around. But for personal preference, I like attaching the trim to the back just so it looks more seamless, I guess. And then when I get to corners, I do a half double crochet decrease. And so in that first corner, I yarn over and pull up a loop and then I go in that next corner and then pull up a loop, yarn over it, and pull through all of the loops, and then that just kind of makes them pull together and look more seamless. And then I continue just doing half double crochets all the way around, and then once I get to the very start, I slip stitch and then fasten off. And here is what it looks like after the half double crochet row. And then for the sleeves, I do a single crochet row, decreasing every like 3 stitches. And if you stuck with me this far, you should have a finished sweater. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.